What's going on, guys and girls? Welcome back to the Falcon FX YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing really well and you've been enjoying the content on a regular basis. Hopefully you checked out last week's episode, which we done a live stream, which is myself and the newest addition to the Falcon FX team, which is Abdu. So he's just become a coach at Falcon. Go and check out that episode. He went over so many things, especially in the crypto side of things. So for those of you that are interested in cryptocurrency, predictions, where things are heading, I highly recommend that you check out that episode. But in today's episode, I'm going to be going over a bit of a Q&A. So I've just been in the office getting a ton of work done. I'm working on some really cool things for the Falcon community as we are in the last part of Q2. So for these 30 days, myself and the coaches and the whole team, we're going to be working on a lot of things, providing a ton of value. So I'm working on something super exciting in there, but I thought great opportunity. It's a beautiful day here just to get a bit of sunshine, a bit of vitamin D before I get into the next session. And so many questions have been sent in recently. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to really go over those and hopefully provide value, give you some perspective that might help you out on your trading journey. So let's actually get into it. So first, what do we have? When should I? Okay, so this is in various forms. So when should I take money out of my trading account? This is a question that needs to be answered and you need to have a game plan for it. This kind of goes in, I will talk about a question on crypto in this, but the same type of thing. You need a game plan as to when you're going to take your money out. You can't just like hold everything forever. Any investment, whether it's property, whether it's stocks and shares, whether it's different asset classes, you need to know where you're going to take your money out. You can't just hold forever. Otherwise, you won't really build the habit of actually exiting. You'll be surprised how many people, they trade trading accounts and they never pay themselves, and then they never associate the real connection towards the real money. So it just kind of stays in there and there's no reward. So what's worked really well for myself, for the coaches and people that I've known in the trading space that have scaled up, is kind of having these milestones in place where you might set, for example, every quarter you pay yourself a certain percentage of those profits, because you have to have the association. You have to satisfy the element of greed that we have in us, because we all do, right? Greed isn't always a bad thing. It needs to be managed, but all of us have an element of greed. There's a ratio. Your ratio might be, let's say, 20% out of a score of 1 to 100, for example. So we need to satisfy that greed to be able to withdraw that money and do something with it, right? You might want to take every quarter, you might want to take 5 or 10% out of those profits, and that is your play money, for example. It might be your reward money, that for all of the hard work and the hours that you're putting in, you then treat yourself. You might take another percentage out that's towards an investment. You might take another percentage out that is towards savings. Whatever it may be, stick to something on a regular basis that you can audit and you can do on a regular basis, rather than just, you know, willy-nilly deciding, okay, on this random date, you just decide I'm going to withdraw 10K. Right, you're not treating it like a business, you're not treating it like a real project. So you need to have these things in place where you can know that, right, every 90 days, I will assess where I'm at. And if I've stuck to my process, if I've ran this business, as your trading asset is a business, if you've ran your business well then you treat yourself. It's a reward system. And then we have to give ourselves these things to look forward to, because that is what keeps the discipline and what makes you focus on the things that you need to focus on. So when, for example, you don't feel like backtesting, or you don't feel like journaling your trades, well, you know, you're not going to reward yourself at the end of those 90 days unless you do it. So focus on the process, have these milestones in place, and then pay yourself. Get the association towards you and that money as real money, and not this kind of monopoly money in an account that you just keep scaling up. Because logically, someone will say, well, just compound it, just leave it in there for 5 years. The reality is very unlikely. You have to make the connection and the association towards it being real money. And the more it feels real to you, you can then scale up and have these things in place. And it's good for the longer term, it's sustainable. It's worked for me and many other people, so I hope that helps. Right, guys, so everybody asks this question in so many different forms. How do you manage trading with a business and social life and family, etc.? Very many forms. This is a good one. Firstly, keep your inner circle tight. So when it comes to, you know, social life of going out on a regular basis, I mean, make your inner circle tight. Surround yourself with people that are successful as you, and surround yourself with people that are more successful than you to push yourself even more. So it's really important to have that in place. However, I almost feel like people that ask this question on a regular basis, like, Mark, how do you have balance? There is no balance, right? Balance is dynamic. But what you can do, so you don't go completely insane, because I know it's all well and good to just say work 24/7, and don't get me wrong, my work ethic is very, very high, so I work a lot, but I love it and I enjoy it. I actually thrive off of it, and when I don't have lots of things to do that are productive, that are part of the projects that I work on, actually makes me complacent and lazy, and I slack off. So it's imperative that I have things to focus on, which is why you tend to find that I'm quite busy and I'm always doing these things, because I perform better that way. However, I still know myself that I need time to recharge. I need to do these things. For example, I'm on the court right now, basketball, tennis, basketball in particular that I absolutely love, and I schedule that in. And I use it as a reward system. So quite similar to the question that I answered before this, which was about, you know, how do you pay yourself? Well, it's a reward system. You've done well every quarter. You treat that as a little milestone. I do similar things. I know, let's say, for example, I've planned out 5 or 6 or 7 things I've got to do today. Well, then guess what? I can then plan that out and say, once I've done those things, because they contribute towards the vision, I've ticked them off, I've done really well, really happy with them, I'm going to spend an hour playing basketball. I'm going to hit the gym and then play basketball. And then that mental clarity for me to be able to know that I'm an hour of basketball, that's my recharge time. Not only is it exercise, not only do I enjoy it, I treat it in a way that I can then train my mind to do these things. And what does that do? It avoids procrastination of the things that you know you need to get done, because the reality is no one is motivated 100% of the time, and there's just this machine that just works all day long and then doesn't want to relax. So what you do is you have to trick your mind, you have to hack it, biohack your mind. There's nothing wrong with enjoying yourself, but there's everything wrong with not prioritizing it in the right way. So for me, it's always been about having these reward systems in place and then just allocating my time and knowing what mode you're in as well. Most people don't realize that when you're running multiple projects, you can't be in the same mode all the time. For example, I'm in the mode right now where I'm actually creating content. I'm doing things for the Falcon community as we speak. So for me to come out here and let's say just record content now for you guys and help you out, provide some value from this perspective, then I'm in that mode, I'm in that creation mode. And that's where I can kind of tap into these areas that I wouldn't be able to in a different mode. So for example, if I'm dealing with contracts and I've got to get on calls with lawyers and structure these different things with funds and all that type of stuff, it's a different level of attention to detail that you need to be in. So what I found with running businesses and doing all these things and trading, it's the mode that you're in, and you have to have these things in place to be able to be in the right mode. So I would tend to say, right, for these 2 to 3 days, I'm in this mode, and this is where I know I'm going to be effective for X, Y, and Z, and then I get it done. Then I'm like, right, I'm in creation mode. When I'm in creation mode, I then can do da-da-da. And that helps me a lot. And I think that is what's more sustainable longer term. And then when you mix trading into all of that, trading is just about having great processes. So I've been doing this for years, since 08, right? So I've learned my way around all these different things, working a 9 to 5, working on different projects, being restricted for chart time, and then having an abundance of chart time while I'm doing different things. So you kind of learn to navigate and do these things. And the way we trade anyway, it's very, very sustainable. So I can know within a very, very high degree that I'm probably not taking a trade for about the next 4 to 8 hours, right? And then that's good for me because I can go, right, I've got my alerts, I know what I need to do. I can then crack on with this next part that's going to help me out towards a different part of the project that I'm working on. So I find balance is dynamic, but work in a way that is congruent with you, that's sustainable for the long run. Trick your mind, biohack it, because it just helps every single time. It's helped me, and I know so many other people that I've recommended this to, so hopefully that helps. Right guys, so next one, this is one of my favorite ones. So I keep putting in the hours, but I still don't have the results. The amount of times people ask me this question, and I think this, again, it just comes firstly, lack of patience. People are just not patient as to what they need to do, and it's normally predetermined timelines that they've set in their head. I honestly believe at the core, that question that gets sent in so much that's been asked to me over more than a 5-year period is that I seem to be putting in all the hours, but I just don't seem to be getting the results. That's what success is. It's showing up every single day and then sometimes having nothing to show for it, but then still being just as motivated the next day to go again and then go again. And think of it like the gym. Imagine you go into the gym and you just do bench press and you're like, oh, I've got nothing to show for it. You go again, I've got nothing to show for it. I've been doing this for 2 months and I haven't really grown. Do you just then stop doing squats and stop doing bench press? No, you don't, because you understand that it takes time and repetition. But yet people don't seem to understand this in trading. Well, they kind of do. I mean, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. Most people understand it's not going to happen in a couple of months. They want it to happen in a couple of months, but inherently they know it may take a bit of time. However, it's because of what we've got programmed in our subconscious. So if you've programmed into that subconscious mind that it should take about a year, that would be good. Yeah, if I feel like I've put in hard work for a year, I should be a consistent trader. And then what happens? A year goes by and you're not. So then your mind's now, oh, 8 months in, like I feel like I'm not where I want to be. And then you start self-sabotage, you start complaining, you start moaning, the frustration comes in, you start to then overanalyze of where you think you should be, you start feeling sorry for yourself, the low self-esteem creeps out. Like all these emotions start to come on because it's all psychological. But who put that there? You put that there. You didn't go logically and say, right, for example, we can quantify, okay, it takes 7 years to be a doctor. You're like, all right, well, 3 years in, you're not going to complain and say, I'm not a doctor yet. But with trading, you don't really know what to gauge that off because it's not set in stone that, right, it should take you 3 years and 2 months and like you're roughly going to have that, like you're going to have your degree. It doesn't work like that in trading, because there's so many other factors as to how much work are you putting in, you know, how much time and effort have you actually put in to the charts. You could say, well, I've been doing this 5 years. Yeah, but how long intensely have you been doing it for 5 years? Have you just been showing up once a week, kind of flirting, dabbling in and out, and then expecting results? Some people have been to the gym for 5 years, but they've never been fully focused. You know what it's like when you really get down to start really focusing, you're dialed in, you've got all your processes in place, and you're really locked into everything. You make so much progression. You don't get rich quick, but you make money fast. Now, if you understand that concept, wealthy people do. And what I mean by that is just like the story of the bamboo, right? You've heard it before, underground, 5 years, you're watering and watering and watering, nothing to show for it. And suddenly in weeks, 60 foot in the air, 100 feet in the air. That just shows you that all the work that you're doing underground, it will come into fruition for something. And most people that are not patient enough to see that, that's what happens. You work your ass off for 2 years, 3 years. You're like, right, I don't really have nothing to show for it. I'm not a full-time trader yet. I've not quit my job. I'm not making 10K, 20K a month. Well, then guess what happens? You work your ass off for 2, 3 years. You start to then get funded. You start to scale up. Suddenly you train $250,000, then $500,000. And then your 10% a month is 25K, 50K, 60K. And you're like, oh, how did that happen so fast? It didn't happen so fast. So you don't get rich quick, but you scale fast once you are the asset. So this is why when people ask that question, it normally comes from predetermined timelines that you put there. No one put that there but yourself. You're just not patient enough. But the reality is, would you rather give up or get upset about it, complain, moan at all the resources that you have, build a weak mentality rather than a strong mentality, and then go and do something else? Or do you work at it and you push through and you remain persistent, you develop a backbone, and then on the other side of it, you've got 30, 40 years of abundance, maybe even more, where you have your freedom, you have your time, you can do whatever you want to do. Imagine that, imagine being able to do whatever you want, when you want, with whoever you want. Well, those are the rewards that come. Do you think that's just going to be easy? You think that just any random person is going to be able to do that in 6 months or even a year, and they're just going to be a successful full-time trader? No, it might take you 4 years, 3 years. Who knows the exact timeline? It all comes down to your work ethic, your level of focus, your level of emotional maturity as well, right? Which is why mindset is so strong. 90% psychology, 10% technical. But then you avoid the big part because you're like, no, I want instant gratification from a strategy because that makes me at least feel like I'm a trader, or it feels like I'm making progress. Yeah, but you're not, because if you don't deal with the root of your psychological issues, then you'll never trade anything. You'll be stuck at 10K trying to double it all the time, which is not going to happen. Very, very rarely that people do that, and it's not sustainable as well, and it's emotionally draining. So what I really want you to think about, that when you say these questions, is like, I feel like I'm putting in all the hours, I'm putting in, every successful person did, but the only difference between the unsuccessful and the successful people, they didn't moan and complain about it. They just understood that, am I doing the right thing? Yes. Do I have faith in that? Yes. Well, then with repetition and time, I back myself and I trust myself that it will come into results at the end, the same way that bamboo grows, the same way that businesses grow, the same way that anything successful grows. Right guys, so next question. So this is in regards to the cryptocurrency market. Mark, which cryptos are you invested in? So before I go over my portfolio, let me just give you an overview. Recently we had that crash in the markets, people panic sell, people that are fearful more than ever. You've got to understand that if you're involved in this, you have to be in it for the long term. You have to have targets. You can't just hold. Most people, they don't ever take profit out of too much greed. They think, well, what if it goes there? What if it goes there? Well, what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't go there? What if you go into a 2-year bear cycle and it reduces 70% of your portfolio because you've not learned how to take profits? Now you might say, yeah, but I just want to hold for the next 10 years. Well, you may want to do that. Well, then don't get upset when you get deep pullbacks, because that's what you're expected in the crypto market, right? You can have so many big swings. You can have a 30% pullback, 40%, 50, 70, 90% pullback. Are you willing to stomach that when you've got more invested on the table? So firstly, don't just chuck in your life savings, right? Be smart with it. Dollar cost average into it. And most people, they'll see something, for example, take XRP for example, hovering around 30, 40 cents for a long period of time. It's like, oh, but I want it to go to 20. I want it to go to 10. I'll buy it 15. And they don't realize, oh, well, I've only got £500, or I've only got, this is not financial advice, by the way, I'm just giving you my overall perspective. It's like, I've only got £500 right now to invest. It's not really worth it, even if it 10x's, it's only this amount. Well, then how do you know how long it's gonna be at that price? How do you know that it's not just gonna trickle on for 2 years at around 30 to 40 to 50 cents, right? Where every single month you could have deposited 200, 300, 200, and before you know it, you've actually built up enough that you've now got 7K invested, right? And then when it does move, suddenly that 7K can be worth a lot more. It can be worth 10x that. So then suddenly you've thought, oh, I haven't got much to start with, but there's actually a strategy behind that within itself. I mean, it's just giving you the technique there and then. So on that element, you don't need to be a huge investor to be able to take advantage of that. And I think that's a bit of a myth as well. The other side of it, don't be searching for these just average coins, hoping to 100x, because the mentality that you're probably in is already the desperation as to why you'll just keep losing in the first place. Yes, I know it does happen. It happens to sometimes, but again, I mean, this mindset as a whole needs to be managed in the crypto market, because what are the stories that you've already seen where people take literally their life savings, they think it's going to 20x or 100x within the next 3 months, and they just obsess over it. Every part, their whole life takes over it. They ruin their relationships. I'm sure many of you have heard stories already. So please be mindful of that and manage that. Again, it comes from the get rich quick mindset. But now to the portfolio. So there's a few questions I get asked a lot. Which one's better? Should I go XRP? Is ADA better than this? Is Ethereum going to be better than Bitcoin, etc.? So for me, technically a little bit of BTC, but not heavily invested in that. I'm actually waiting for a deeper pullback. Whether we have one more leg to the upside and then the bear cycle, I mean, I'm not really that fussed, but eventually I will have a larger amount in Bitcoin. Then I have XRP, which is my biggest holding, and then I have Ethereum, then I have Cardano, and then I've got just a few ones like Polkadot, etc., but just like not big holdings in that sense. But the main ones for me is XRP, Ethereum, and ADA. Those are the main ones. I will add in other stuff at a later stage. I mean, even BNB at one point is going to be at a decent value. I mean, there's so many things that will essentially be at a good value to buy. However, you have to have a strategy for your exit target. So for example, however you're analyzing these things, you need to know, right, if it gets to this area, I'm going to withdraw 50% of my holdings, for example. If it gets to this area, I'm going to withdraw 70% of my holdings, for example, and then you leave a certain amount. Or you might say, do you know what, if Ethereum gets to 10K per coin, I'm going to take 90% out and I'm going to keep 10% in. Whatever the strategy that you have that you think is reasonable and justifiable for you, you need something in place. Otherwise, what will happen? As you know, in the crypto market, it moves fast, so things will get there very, very quick, and you're like, what do I do? You panic, and then you make bad decisions, and then you lose out on a lot of money. It become very costly. So please, I deploy you to have a strategy as an exit strategy as well, and don't just hold forever, right? Because then you'll just get upset in the long run and realize, oh, I should have done this. You weren't planned for it in the first place. Same as trading. I think this comes from our deeply driven processes that we do in Falcon. We know exactly what we're doing. We know how we're going to enter, we know how we're going to exit, we know how we're going to manage. So we know what we're doing before we've even entered the position. Yet people getting involved in crypto, they just buy and think, oh, I don't know when I'm going to sell. Well, how do you have any idea what you're doing if you don't have an exit strategy? So something to think about there. What do I think is a good one at the moment? Of course, XRP, there's a lot of talk. I almost see it 50-50. There's people that are very, very pro XRP and people that are very salty about it. And I think mainly is because they had an expectation that it should be at $10 by now. That's mainly rather than the actual use case. And I know there's law cases, etc., but ultimately massively undervalued. What else is undervalued? I mean, Ethereum versus ADA, for example. I'm very, very bullish on Ethereum. Is it ready for the world right now? Not necessarily. Will it be ready? Are there things in place to reduce the gas fees and all these type of things that is essentially going to make it more attractive? Yes. Well, then you have to look at the other side of it. If you compare Ethereum to ADA, Cardano, then you have to understand that one of the co-founders of Ethereum created ADA, right? So you have to understand that. Imagine that you're creating a cryptocurrency and you've been on the board, like you know inside and out essentially Ethereum. What are you going to do? You're going to build that coin, ADA, with the flaws of Ethereum in mind, which makes it very, very attractive. Now at the moment we've got the smart contracts coming out for ADA, so for predictions in that sense, some people bought at 5, some people bought at 10 cents, some people took advantage of that boost. However, even now I think it's massively undervalued. Is it going to be $100 a coin? Maybe in the future, who knows? Can it be worth 10x what it's worth now? 100% within the next couple of years. I see ADA being worth over $10 per coin. And in that respect, you've got to think about within the next, I think it's in the next 3 months, so within the next sort of 90 days, if they roll out their smart contracts, what does that do for competition with Ethereum? Well, then you've got NFTs. Now, you already know that it's very, very expensive in terms of the fees for NFTs on the Ethereum. But again, Ethereum's going to keep going up, which is why I have both, by the way, is the demand for Ethereum. You have to buy Ethereum for your NFT. So if you just use literally common sense, there is always going to be a demand for Ethereum. Right, so in that respect, with the NFT market, you've got it there. Now, what happens with the smart contracts? Then we can very soon have NFTs on ADA. that's potentially maybe faster, maybe quicker, maybe cheaper, which is very, very likely, by the way, well, then you've got competition. So then people are going to be then using more ADAs. We can go into all various things of staking and all these type of things. I know Ethereum is working on a lot of those things as well. However, the reality is, I think out of all of them, ADA is probably one of the most undervalued cryptocurrencies right now that is set to shift. Whether it is by the tail end of this year or early next year, I mean, who knows that? But I know within the next couple of years, you'll be kicking yourself if you didn't have a portion in some of these things. So my heavily invested one is of course XRP, and then ADA is my second, and I will add more to that. I'm actually looking for an entry criteria. So there's something on a technical analysis that if we come down and we kind of fill this wick area roughly around $1 to 150, I'll be happy to get involved in a much larger holding. But again, I will look to hold that, but I have an exit strategy. I know that if we hit $8 to $10, that I'm going to withdraw 50 to 60% of my holdings, and then I'll use it for something else. So the same thing that I kind of circle back to, know what you're doing. Will I add to Ethereum as well? Yes. Ideally, I can see whether we have that one more leg up on BTC and Ethereum, we will get a pullback, a deeper pullback. And I mean, Ethereum at $500 or even $1,000 per coin is an incredible value to hold for the longer term. So I would ideally let this run happen if there is one more push on some of the altcoins, etc. And then once they trickle back, whether it's a year, whether it's a 2-year cycle, well, then you're going to have a tremendous amount of incredible coins that are working on their use cases. They're tightening up all these things that is essentially going to explode. And then guess what happens? All the people that bought at these all-time highs, which again, what the amateurs do, right? Because they see it in the mainstream media. It's like, right, Bitcoin now, and they buy at 60K, right? They don't understand what they're doing. So what happens? They're like, right, oh, I invested 5K and now my portfolio is only worth 3K or 5K. And then they just sell it out of panic sale. They're like, oh, what if it goes to zero? Because they don't know what they're doing. The price just consolidates, it trickles, and eventually you see Bitcoin at 10K, you see Ethereum at 1,000. They're like, oh, I don't want to get involved in that, I lost money last time. And then boom, has its bull run. So you've got to understand, this is necessary for the market to happen. So I would say Ethereum versus ADA, I have both and I love them both, but I think that ADA is a dark horse that can shock a lot of people. As people that are in the space, you'll know more about ADA and the staking and everything that's happening right now. But overall, I think it's undervalued and people's attention are too shifted to BTC and Ethereum. And you're forgetting about these other things that are massively undervalued. I mean, there's probably about, even in this section alone, I'm sure, comment below, you can probably list about 20 or 30 other coins that you're invested in that you feel that's valuable as well. And let me know, actually, I would be curious to say, what is your top 5? What are the top 5 coins right now that you personally think over the next year or a couple of years that are going to 5x, 10x, and be very valuable in terms of the utility behind it? I'd be very curious to know. So I'm excited from that front. And again, I'm only speaking from my experience in the market. I'm only speaking from experience of my research and my own portfolio. I'm not an expert and a guru in the crypto space. You know, over the years I will improve, and you know, I'm in this industry, so this kind of stuff is always going to fascinate me. But I firmly believe, from my experience of investing in property and being very holistic and having different asset classes, I think ADA is a really, really dark horse, guys. So let's see how it plays out. But overall, hope you enjoyed this episode and this kind of take on the crypto side of things. But again, it just brings me back to 2008 with that kind of volatility mindset that everyone's trying to pick this thing of 100x. But the reality is, you have to look deeper. You need to know your exit strategies. You need to know what you're doing rather than a quick pump. Yes, sometimes you might catch something and feel on top of the world, but if you've not got the right mindset, you'll end up giving it back to loads of garbage anyway. So work on yourself, do your research, and actually build yourself up so you are an asset, and then you can profit longer term. So guys and girls, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your #1 takeaways throughout this kind of Q&A. A little bit spontaneous in that sense, but hope you have an incredible day. Catch you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.